Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is having a great week. We have a treat for you all today. I have called in one of my friends to help us out with these virtual interviews. I know it's been crazy for everybody right now. Everybody's home for the most part. We're all working remote. People are not coming in for interviews the way we used to, the way we're comfortable with, right? So Ms. Daralyn Walker is going to help us with that. But before we get into that, let me just tell you a little bit about Daralyn. Daralyn has been working in the human resource field for over a decade. She has extensive experience in the talent acquisition industry and has recruited nationally for large organizations such as Dow Chemical, Quicken Loans, Henry Ford Hospital, and so many others. Currently, she works for the city of Detroit, where she recruits specifically for government offices, health departments, and IT. She has created and implemented strategy across various divisions and has decreased time to fill positions, reduce turnover, and of course, increase diversity talent pools. Daralyn is truly a strategic thinker, which is why I wanted her to come on with us today. She has the capability to manage, organize, develop, and train others effectively. And she falls squarely at the intersection of talent acquisition and diversity, inclusion, and belonging. I love that word, belonging. Her desire to see underrepresented individuals be exposed to different walks of life are apparent in everything she does, which is why she was our perfect guest for us today to talk about virtual interviewing. Welcome, Daralyn.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I am so glad that you were able to find some time to hang out with us today and just kind of kick it around about this. I know that there are, all of us are kind of in a new world, and virtual interviews for you and I, this isn't anything new. Right. But for so many other people, this is completely new. They have never done this before, and they just aren't sure how to navigate. And then some are getting it somewhat right. And as you and I talked, and you can share some stories, well, the ones you can actually tell. Some are getting it all wrong. So I just want to ask you a few questions here today, and then you can share any additional insight just to give people some action steps that they can actually take. So we can dive in here, but is there anything else you'd like to share about yourself before we dive in?
No, I just really love talent acquisition and recruitment. I think it is like the integral part of any organization. And as you know, just as well as I do, every organization on the planet has a recruitment team, whether it's one person or whether it's 500 people, right? So being able to impress that one person or those 500 people, they're the gatekeepers to the organization. And you're right. So many people have not had to do virtual interviews, right? So they know all the rules as far as walking into a building, having copies of resume in hand, how to dress and different things of that nature. But navigating this technological world and having to interview and show your best self, it can definitely be intimidating. So I'm very excited to kind of answer your questions and kind of talk about it a little bit more.
Absolutely. Yes. I like what you said about how intimidating it can be, and the fact that you as an HR professional acknowledge that, because you all are the gatekeepers, right? You guys are the ones who can help make people feel more comfortable in these interviews. So I think that that's telling that you recognize the challenge that some people may have. So, all right. So what do you think are the top 3 mistakes people make in a virtual interview?
Yes, so I think the top 3 mistakes that people make, I'll say number 1 is not making sure that their technology is working correctly, right? So I've had interviews where the person logs on and then they can't hear, or they don't know how to use Zoom or Microsoft Office Teams. They've never really, acclimated themselves to the system. I've had people who've logged on and it's a different name and there's a background with like little kids or whomever, because they haven't done the necessary steps to prepare to be in front of that camera. And that's so important because, as you know, first impressions are everything. So when I'm logging on to interview you, I want to see your best self. in the first 5 minutes, because that's the biggest impression. So I see that. I think that's number one. Number two is lighting. There's a big deal. It may not seem like a big deal, but it is very much a big deal. When you're in an interview, you can tell how someone is by the way that they sit, right? How they're paying attention, their facial expressions, and different things of that nature. Well, if your lighting is bad and I can't see your face really well, or the camera, I've had interviews where the camera was here, so all I could see were
Yeah.
so just making sure that the lighting is really well and that it's complementary to the interview. Number three, I would say backgrounds. Backgrounds can be very distracting, more distracting than we know, right? So you could be in the middle of an interview and you could be saying something really important, but if you have a small child running behind you, or if you have someone in the kitchen dancing while you're giving
goodness,
a presentation, right?
Oh goodness.
It's a big distraction. So really making sure that your background is clear. If you do have to have doors in the background, making sure that they're locked so that no one can come in, right? And just making sure that even if you can't hear them or anything like that, just making sure that it's all clear and there's nothing there that can be distracting to the person who's watching you.
You know what I hate? I hate's a strong word. I won't say hate. Because they're getting better, but people aren't investing in the better ones. They're using the free Zoom backgrounds.
Yes.
So then when you move, your arm is cut off. I'm like,
I get it, because there's some places where there's no way that for you to have like a clean background.
Yeah.
But really take the time to invest. If you were to go into an interview, you would make sure that you had the best suit on.
Yes.
Your shoes would be clean. You would have nicely clean resumes that were wrinkle free, So it's the same thing with making sure that visually you're showing your best self.
And being dressed.
Yes.
Being dressed for your interview is very important. Mm-hmm. I have heard a lot of horror stories about attire for a virtual interview.
Yes, that's very important. In the interviews that I've done over the last 3 to 6 months, I haven't had much of an issue with dressing.
Okay.
I've had more of an issue with people being in their cars, people being outside. Those are just very distracting backgrounds. I would always say, if you're going to interview, find a quiet space in the house. Use a computer and not a phone, because with your phone, the connection, goes in and out. And I can say 9 times out of 10, all of the interviews that I've done that have been over the phone, it has gone out or it has glitched or something like that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And we kind of talked on this, how they should dress for an interview. They should be dressing as they would if they were in person, and fully dressed, like top and bottom, just in case.
Yeah. You never know what could happen. You never know.
You never know.
Falls, right.
Right. If you have to get up, you never know. So what kind of questions should people ask in their interview? It is always important to have questions. And I think some people, I heard this question the other day, well, what if I don't have any questions? So what type of questions should they ask? And then what if they just don't have any questions?
Well, there's always a question to be asked, because there's no way that everything has been covered in the interview. There's just no way to cover all of your questions. So I would definitely ask questions about, it's a new day, right? So will this position be remote? And if it is remote, what is the process? So am I going into the office 2 days a week and then working from home 3 days a week? Is it going back into the office at all? I've been interviewing with companies and talking with other hiring managers that I know personally, and some of them are not going back into the office until spring 2021.
Right.
Some people are not going back into the office at all.
That's true. That's true.
It's so important to know that. And sometimes that's something that's glossed over in the interview. I've had positions where candidates were under the impression the position was going to be remote. And then once they found out at the end of the process that they would have to go into the office 3 to 4 days a week, they decided not to pursue the
Take the job.
Mm-hmm. Also, what are their COVID procedures, right? So what
That's a
steps
good
are
one.
they taking to make sure that they're keeping people safe, even if they do go back, if you're working like a hybrid position where you're working in the office and outside of the office, that's something that's really important because you want to make sure that you're safe and that they're taking the necessary steps to make sure that you're safe, that you're safe as well. So it's very important.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about the position itself, I would definitely dig deep into the job description and pull questions out of that. So if it's a sales position or something that where you have to have a quota or you meet a quota, ask questions like, how am I going to be judged? What are going to be my monthly goals for the month, week, year, day? What do those goals look like? Generic questions like, what does success look like in this role? Those are good questions, but you really want to get what makes a hiring manager or a recruiter like myself really stand up and pay attention is when you ask questions that really dig deep into what that position is doing on a day-to-day basis. So I think it's something that people really need to pay attention to. I would always ask about benefits, healthcare, paid time off. Those are questions once you get to the end of the process that you can start to ask because it's very important that you know what your benefits package is going to look like.
So, okay, that's a good point. So, okay, I'm in here, I'm interviewing. At what point do I ask that benefit question? So interview 1, 2, so let's say it's a 3 interview process. Where do I ask the question about benefits?
Well, it depends on the level of importance they are for you. So I would never ask anything about benefits in the first interview.
Okay.
Because you're interviewing them just like they're interviewing you, right? So if you decide after the interview, and I've had people do that, they withdraw from the process after the first interview because they didn't like what the position was going to be. It didn't sound like what they thought it was going to be. There's no reason to ask a question about benefits. Once you get to the second interview and they ask you questions, I would definitely say, hey, I just want to know, what do the benefits look like here for your organization? Because that does help when it comes to the compensation question as well, which is important to the end of the second.
Yes.
Most of the time, by the time you get to the end of the second interview, you're going to have an idea of whether or not it's going to move forward to a third interview. So those would be those types of questions that I would ask at the end of the second interview.
Absolutely. I like the fact that you brought up how the benefits affect the compensation, because even if maybe you're making more money, they're offering you more money at this position. If the benefits are going to cost you what that increase was, it's a wash. So those are things you need to think about when you're going for job interviews and applying for other jobs. Yeah, you may be making more money, but if your insurance is going to cost you all of that increase, it's like, was that the best move? Or you could negotiate your salary a little bit with that information. So that's really good. We talked a little bit about your background and all this kind of thing. How else should someone prepare for a virtual interview?
I would definitely say if you have a friend or a family member that you can get on a Zoom call with and have them look at you and you look at them and ask questions, I think that will always help, because that person is able to point out, hey, you have that bottle in the back of the camera, right? So you really need to move that. Or maybe you shouldn't wear that shirt. Is that the shirt that you're going to wear for the interview? So having someone there to kind of help you prepare is so important.
And test the technology.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you need to know, what if someone does walk into the room while you're interviewing? If you know how to quickly mute or quickly take the camera off, then that's something that you would be able to do if you've been on the equipment or the technology to be able to test it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We know there are some differences, but what is so different about a virtual interview versus in person?
Yeah, I think that we as individuals think like, oh, well, a virtual interview will be easier but it's just as important, if not more, because they're seeing, one, how you use technology, right? Two, how you're able to communicate yourself across a platform. What if it's a position where you do have to speak often? They're able to see how you come across on that platform. And three, it's just really good practice being able to see yourself. So I think it's so important that we make sure that we practice doing interviews virtually just as much as we would practice doing them in person. And I always say, when you are doing a virtual interview, always have a digital copy of your resume available for the hiring manager.
Okay.
Because if you're interviewing, you may say, oh, do you have a copy of my resume? If you don't, I can shoot it to you really quickly. Or let's say you're talking about something and you have a portfolio, you can quickly shoot them, the link to the portfolio if there's
during the call.
Yeah. So just being able to be readily accessible technology-wise, being able to share your screen if you need to share your screen. I think that that's so important. And the more savvy that you are, the more impressive it comes across.
That's right. Especially if they add more people to your interview than you thought were going to be there. Maybe that person doesn't have your resume and they're trying to get caught up. It's very helpful for you to say, okay, here, I'll just drop it in the chat, or I'll just send it to you, what's your email or something like that. So I think that's smart. This actually happened. So someone, and I think recruiters and hiring managers, I think that sometimes with people who aren't as savvy with interviewing, they'll catch them off guard. So someone, not on purpose, but especially with some of our young adults, right? So the recruiter says, I want you to tell me how, so I'm going to be my niece, and you're going to be me, and I'm going to be like, Auntie Daralyn, I got a call from X company, and they just want me to give them a call tomorrow at noon, and they just said they just want to talk to me and get to know me. What should I do? That's gonna be on the phone.
I would prepare as if I was going to be interviewing in person. Anytime that you are in front of that hiring manager, that is an opportunity for them to determine whether or not they want to add you to their organization.
Yes.
Period. So
yes.
Even when you're interviewing, and I kind of feel like you have more of an advantage when you're doing a phone interview and a virtual interview, because you can have your resume and you necessarily don't have to read verbatim, but you're able to quickly say, okay, well, I've done this and I've done that and I've done that. So you should be even more prepared to interview with a phone or virtually than you should be in person, because you
got your notes.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like, I got portfolio here, resume here. I have questions here, things that I prepared. So like, I feel like it's so much easier, although I do understand people have that little camera shyness. So let's talk about that. How do you choose? You never know what a recruiter is going to ask, or a hiring manager, or whoever's interviewing you. Often it is the HR rep first, right? How do you know what questions to write up and study when you have no idea what they might ask you?
Well, and maybe I'm biased because that's what I do every day, but I feel like at least the first two questions you're going to know what they're going to ask, right? So the first question is going to be, tell me a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in the position. So,
and I should tell you about how I love to go dancing. And, I go ice skating on the weekends with the kids, and we love to swim, and all of that.
And that's the problem, right? Because we start to go back to high school and elementary school and how we grew up and different things of that nature. But being able to prepare an elevator speech to talk about, in brevity, maybe 3 to 5 sentences about who we are.
Yes.
So if I was applying for a position in talent acquisition or diversity and inclusion, they would say, so tell me a little bit about yourself. Well, I have been recruiting for the last X amount of years. My passion lies with diversity and inclusion, and I have done A, B, C, D, and E in that area. The reason why I am interested in your organization is because A, B, C, D, and E, and it aligns with A, B, C, D, and E, right?
Okay, so look, I hope everybody, you guys better pause, rewind. You know how we used to do, but some folks might not know. Back in the day, we had the tapes, the mixed tapes. I hope you guys are pausing and playing and writing, okay? Because she just basically laid out a template for you, like really. So you can work on your own personal. We talk about personal branding all the time. This is part of personal branding. Having your elevator pitch is not just for businesses. It's not just for networking. It is for when you're sitting in front of those hiring managers. I love it. Thank you. That was golden right there.
You're welcome.
But I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you're fine. I was going to say, I interviewed a candidate the week before last, and she was like, I prepared a little elevator speech for you. And then she read it to me. It was a virtual interview, and she read it to me, and it was so well thought out, and it hit on the head exactly what her skill set was, what she was interested in, and why her skill set fit the position that she was applying for. And that's what the recruiter wants to know. So I worked for companies where you ask the candidate, why are you interested in working for the company? And they don't even know what the company does.
Oh.
Not even on a high, not even a high level.
No research.
Yeah.
No Googling. You just plopped down and did the interview with no information.
Yeah, do your research. Why do you want to work for this company? Why do you want to work for PNC Bank as opposed to Bank One? Or I don't think there's a Bank One, but any bank.
Yeah, any bank.
Why do you want to work for this university as opposed to that university? What is the passion behind that? And when I talk to a lot of hiring managers, they want to know, why does that person have a passion? Because they want to know that this isn't just a stepping stone for them, that they're not going to get into this position and in 2 years they're going to leave. They want to know that this person wants to be ingratiated into the organization, and they want to grow and move the needle forward in that particular organization.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my goodness. I love it. I love it. I love it. I know that this is helping a lot of people, especially in our current environment where there are a lot of people looking for work. How should the interviews over? How do people follow up?
That's a great question.
Especially in this virtual world, because it's not like you're not, able to. Anyway, how do people follow up?
No, so I would always, to kind of go back to your question about questions, one of your questions should be, what are the next steps in the process? So usually that recruiter or that hiring manager will tell you the next steps, and then they'll say, if you have any questions, just get back with me. Always ask at the end of the interview, could I have your email address, because I would like to send you an email, just to thank you for meeting with me. So I would definitely send in a thank you email. I would definitely make it not just thank you for meeting with me, it was great, have a great day. Make it where you could really tell, especially if it was a good interview and it was a great conversation and it just flowed, that you really pull out some talking points from that interview. And then I would attach references, I would attach your resume, and I would attach your cover letter. And I know you're thinking, oh, that's too much, I don't want to do all of that, but it makes you stand out. Because even if you don't get selected for that position, I know as a recruiter, oh, I interviewed that guy and he put everything in one email. Let me just go forward that to this other hiring manager that's looking for something else.
That's good. Especially the references part, because, they tell you don't send the references until they're requested. And nowadays, a lot of people aren't requesting them. So I think that's good, because even if they never call them, it's the effort, it's the branding.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, wow, she sent that, he sent that. I'm not going to call these people, but that just shows a level of professionalism that they even knew to do that. So that was good. My other question for you now is going to be about the cover letter. We get this question all the time. Do we still need to do a cover letter?
It depends on the position. And I'll say this about the references really quick.
Okay.
This is a little cheat sheet, and I don't know if every recruiter cares about this, but I
Mm-hmm.
care about this. You don't have to put the phone number down of the reference. You can put their first name, their last name, the title that they work in, and their email address. So if I really want to contact them, then I'll reach back out to you to say, hey, I'm going to contact such and such and so and so. So then you're not giving their personal information, you're giving an email, right? So
That's good.
As far as the cover letter, I think it definitely depends on the position that you're applying for. If you're applying for something in the university space, for a college or university, trade school, something like that, cover letter, absolutely, because they value that industry looks at cover letters. If you're looking for something in communications, PR, marketing, digital marketing, that world, cover letter, yes. If you're looking for something in finance or recruitment, then 9 times out of 10, a cover letter is not necessary. So if it is an option on the application, you don't necessarily have to add it on there.
Okay. That was good, because we get that question all the time. Some people say no, some people say yes, but the way you broke it down by profession, I think that's really, really, really helpful. Okay, anything else as far as interviewing that you'd like to share? Things that maybe you see, or warnings that you have for people when it comes to interviewing? Like people are always nervous during interviews. Is there anything they can do for the nerves, or is there anything else that you might be able to help with, as that you see being an experienced professional in this area?
Well, I would say that, I mean, as myself, I've interviewed for positions as well, and I've been nervous, but you have to realize that you're the expert in this area, and this multi-million-dollar company has reached out to you to talk to you about your expertise. So they didn't overlook you. Most positions, you're going to get about 300 to 500 people that apply for a job.
Wow.
So 300 to 500 people that have applied, they have actually taken the time out to schedule some time to talk to you. So that means you're kind of a big deal. So hopefully that kind of helps you kind of, calm your nerves.
Woosah a little bit.
Yeah. And they're looking for you to come in and impress them. That's what they want. They want to be impressed. I would look at it as a presentation, because you're presenting your skill set and what you've done, and how, when you come into their organization, what you're going to do. And so you have to look at it from that perspective, as opposed to, oh, woe is me, I hope that they like me. I've had hiring managers that have said, the candidate I interviewed, she did so great. And then at the end of the interview, she said, oh, well, so do you think that I could even, that my skill set will be a fit? And she said that made me question whether or not she thought that she would be good at the job.
Her confidence.
You have to have the confidence to know that you know the job. And yes, you want to learn, and you're going to learn, and you'll be an asset to the organization, and you'll learn from the organization. But with what you know at the level that you're an expert at that. So I think that's important to keep in mind when it comes to your nerves.
Oh my goodness, that's good. That's good. Oh, yes. Listen, thank you so much for this interview. This was, you have to come back. Yeah, I need you to come back, because I have so many more questions, first of all. And I really appreciate you taking the time out. And we will make sure that we bring Ms. Daralyn Walker back. So any last thoughts or comments that you'd like to share before we sign off?
I would definitely say, like, right now, I know we're in the time that we're in right now, looking for a job can be very difficult. However, looking for a job takes time, right? So if you don't find the perfect job in a month, in 3 months, in 6 months, even in a year, it doesn't mean that you're not a good fit. It doesn't mean that you're any less of a person in that category. It just means that there hasn't been a fit for you, and it will come, and you just have to continue to keep pushing the pedal forward and moving forward, and don't give up. Continue to apply, continue to network, have a LinkedIn page, have a LinkedIn page. Go to as many career fairs as you can, get tips from recruiters, connect with people as much as possible, and you'll find your spot. It just takes
Yes.
time. And I think we always want to rush it like, oh, I want this job tomorrow. But that may
Yeah.
not be for you, but yours is coming. And so I think that that's something that we have to continue to reiterate, because it can be taxing and it can weigh on you, because you may feel like, well, maybe I'm not, maybe I'm not the best. Like,
Yeah.
no, you're still an expert. Your time is
Yeah.
coming. It just takes time.
You know what? That is some awesome encouragement. People need to hear that right now. I thank you for that, because it is taxing on their emotions and on their money. So when you're looking at your bills and your last, little money coming in, and you don't have a job yet, it can weigh on you heavily. So thank you so much for offering that encouragement to people. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I had a great time.
Oh my goodness, this was wonderful. Thank you so much. How can people, first of all, share your services and how people can reach you?
Absolutely. So I am the president of Walker Goodlow Resume Writing, and we also do mock interviewing and presentations. So I've done presentations all over the Detroit metro area, as well as the Atlanta area, and I've worked with national organizations to do presentations as well. So if
Mhm.
you are interested in my services, you can definitely email me at dara@beautifulworkspublishing.com. And we can hook you up with a resume writer, or if you're looking for someone to do virtual speaking, we have that as well.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. You guys definitely connect with Dara. Definitely get connected with the resume writing. It's going to help you with that LinkedIn too.
The LinkedIn page.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dara.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.